Yes,
Hare Krishna.
Mataji. Yes, Mataji, we can hear you. Continue. We heard what you said
Okay,
before.
thank you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraet shrinuvatam swakatah krishna punyashravana kirtanah hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti shruti satam nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nitya bhagavata seveyam भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकीः. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 14, verses from 20, 21 and 22. Text 20. Tasmin tuste kim aprapyam jagatam ishwareshware lokah sapalah hi etasmai haranti balin adritah. Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the great demigods, controllers of universal affairs. When he is satisfied, nothing is impossible to achieve. For this reason, all the demigods, presiding deities of different planets, as well as the inhabitants of their planets, take great pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship. Purport: Srila Prabhupada. All Vedic civilization is summarized in this verse. All living entities, either on this planet or on other planets, have to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their respective duties. When he is satisfied, all necessities of life are automatically supplied. In the Vedas, it is also stated, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidudhati Kaman, from Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. From the Vedas, we understand that he is supplying everyone's necessities, and we can actually see that the lower animals, the birds and the bees, have no business or profession, yet they are not dying for want of food. They are all living in nature's way, and they all have the necessities of life provided, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Human society, however, has artificially created a type of civilization which makes one forgetful of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Modern society even enables one to forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead's grace and mercy. Consequently, modern civilized man is always unhappy and in need of things. People do not know that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Lord Vishnu and satisfy him. They take they have taken this materialistic way of life as everything and have become captivated by materialistic activities. Indeed, their leaders are always encouraging them to follow this path, and the general populace, being ignorant of the laws of God, are following their blind leaders down the path of unhappiness. In order to rectify this world situation, all people should be trained in Krishna consciousness and act in accordance with the Varnashrama system. The state should also see that the people are engaged in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the primary duty of the state. The Krishna consciousness movement was started to convince the general populace to adopt the best process by which to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus solve all problems. Text 21. Tam sarvalokamara yajnah sangraham त्रयीमयं द्रव्यमयं तपोमयं यज्ञैर्विचित्रैर्यजोतो भव्यैते राजन् स्वदेशान् अनुरोधम् arhasi. Translation: Dear King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with the predominating deities, is the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices in all planets. The Supreme Lord is the sum total of the three Vedas, the owner of everything, and the ultimate goal of all austerity. Therefore, your countrymen should engage in performing various sacrifices for your elevation. Indeed, you should always direct them towards the offering of sacrifices. Text 22. यज्ञेन युष्मद्विषये द्विजतैभिः विद्यायमनैव विद्यायनेन सुरः कालहरेः स्विष्टः शुतुष्टाः प्रदिष्टानि वञ्चितं तद्देहलानं नरहसि विराट चेष्टितम्. Translation: When all the Brahmanas engage in performing sacrifices in your kingdom, all the demigods who are plenary expansions of the Lord will be very much satisfied by their activities and will give you your desired results. Therefore, O hero, do not stop the sacrificial performances. If you stop them, you will disrespect the demigods. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चातदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे. I like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas and thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. Please forgive me for any shortcomings. So, we are at the stage where the great sages are explaining to King Vena the way in which he and his subjects can be happy by pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead and what benefits if he would get by ruling his kingdom as Krishna consciousness. And in the couple of these verses, Prabhupada is giving a very broad picture and perspective of truth, how in this material world, whatever happiness is possible, only one can attain by the mercy of Krishna. So before these verses, all the sages were trying to make the king understand and if you see in the verses 16, 17, and 18, the sages are explaining the king what should be his responsibilities, like what he should be responsible for facilitation in the sense of facilitating the spiritual elevation, and he should be responsible for preventing from degradation of his subjects. And he was also explained about the protection, how he should be responsible for protecting the subjects from the miscreants, and he should be engaged in varnashrama occupational duties to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And finally, satisfaction is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which even all demigods automatically get satisfied. And the sages were directing the king to direct the citizens to perform yajnas, sacrifices. Here, very clearly, it is mentioned, as we also have seen in Bhagavad Gita, that all sacrifices performed and the enjoyer is only the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And once the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, all demigods as well as all other living entities will be automatically having happiness. Now, here performance of one's duty as per Varnashrama means that is worship by work, and by worshipping the Lord deity in this material world, and the most easiest way is by chanting of holy names of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Ishvara, Ishvara of all Ishvaras. Here Ishvara means controller. So Krishna is the controller of all controllers. It is very important to understand in this material world there are multiple layers of Ishvara, because this material world is created for those who want to be Ishvara. Somebody want to be Ishvara in his own department or in his own profession. Somebody will be a demigod, and among demigods there will be a bigger demigod. So we see that everyone wants to control one another. One should understand this material world is basically for Ishvara Rasa, and everybody attains by according to their own karma performed, and Lord does not interfere. We all know that all energies belong to Lord. The bottom line is he is maintaining everybody, but in between the living entities are given a chance for Ishvara Rasa. The outside world is everything about power, and in modern world, power is money. It's the medium of exchange of power. So a devotee should be able to see this world from Vedic perspective. Primarily, every living entity is handling power, and this misuse of power or use of power. The misuse of power, you get bad karma, and use of power in good sense, and use of power, dovetailing in Krishna consciousness, you get punya. Punya will bring you more power in your next life or maybe in present life. This is how the law of karma is dispensed. First of all, what is power? One should understand this. It is our ability to control people or to control the material nature or to move the material nature. Absolute power is held by the Supreme Lord. That is why he is called Ishvara Paramakrishna, where no one is equal to him nor above him. Above everybody head there is Ishvara, but above Krishna there is no Ishvara. In spiritual world, everyone wants to surrender to Krishna, the supreme power, surrendering more and more, while it is it is totally opposite in material world, where in material world everybody is trying to control more and more and more by power. In Bhagavad Gita, text 8.7, it states, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha maya arpita manobuddhi mam evaishesya asmasya. Translation of this verse is, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Krishna being the supreme power, so one should all engage in pleasing Krishna. And how this can be done? This is one where Krishna instructs Arjuna. The instruction of Arjuna here is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. And this is what it has been explained that one should be following varnashramas accordingly in order to perform his prescribed duties. And one can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. In Bhagavad Gita text 12:10, Adhyayasa asamrtosi mat karma paramo bhava mad artham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsesi. And the translation of this verse is, if you cannot practice the regulations of bhakti yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Here, Krishna is also giving an option in case if one is not capable of performing the regulations of bhakti yoga or one is not that stage to adopt bhakti yoga, then he provides another alternative, and that is that just perform the work because of Krishna and dedicate all the work to Krishna. One who is not able even to practice the regulative principles can adopt this. And how to do this is work has already been explained in the 55th verse of the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. One should be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. There are many devotees who are engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness and they require help. So even if one cannot directly practice the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga, he can try to help such work. Every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. Just as in business, one requires a place to stay, some capital to use, and some labor, and some organization to expand. So the same is required in the service of Krishna. The only difference is that in materialism, one works for sense gratification, while in the spiritual, one works for Krishna's satisfaction. That is what it is. It is mentioned in these above verses, in verse 21, I guess, where one satisfies Krishna by performing all sacrifices for Krishna, that is the ultimate goal of the performance of sacrifice. The main goal is to satisfy Krishna and make Krishna happy. The same work, however, can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna in the spiritual activity. If one has sufficient money, he can help in building the temples for propagating Krishna consciousness or for publishing books, and so on and so forth. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise higher state of love for God, whereupon one becomes perfect. In this way, one can satisfy Krishna under the good leadership direction. This can be possible. If the leader himself is ignorant of this knowledge, then where is the question of him being a role model for his citizens and as for his kingdom? Therefore, it is very imperative that the king in those days had received guidance from the Brahmanas and sages, which is a true and a good example in case of King Vena, as we have so far read in Bhagavad Gita. So, I end of today's understanding of these verses. Please forgive for any shortcomings. Hare Krishna.